Okay, so right now we're going to look at the Archimedes screw I've been working on for a while. I've lost count of how many hours I could possibly have put into this. It's like I really have no clue. I have put so many hours into this thing. You're seeing it pretty far along prepped right now. It's a lot of prep work, all done with needles of various sizes and types, sewing needles and hypodermic, just different shapes and sizes. The reasons for that is how much matrix I want to take off away from the fossil and what I'm doing at the time. I also go slightly different in the angle depending on how much I want to take off too. And at times, even with the hypodermics, work really good for detail. They have a very, very fine point. I can't even get the fine point with sharpened sewing needles, and the sewing needles I do use are sharpened. These, though, the hypodermics, come with a very, very, very sharp point. And eventually I have to resharpen them. But at first, I can come in at a very steep angle and just poke into the matrix. And it breaks away a little bit. Think jackhammer, but on a very slow and soft and tiny basis. You're going straight down into the matrix, or in the case of the jackhammer, concrete or pavement, whatever, rock, you're going straight down into it. It breaks it. That's what it's doing in a very small micro size when I'm doing this. Other times I come in at a very shallow angle. Scrape away just a little bit at a time off the top. Again, depending on what I want to do at the time. The needle I'm using right now is a hypodermic 22 gauge. I cut the end off and stick it in a pin vise. Then I come along and very gently work away a little bit of matrix at a time. This one works well for what I'd call mid-range detail. And when I say detail, I mean I'm taking off only very little compared to some of the other needles I use. I have one larger sewing needle with a tip that is basically flathead screwdriver shaped. That one is strictly for removing a lot of rock all at once. Another I have is a slightly large needle, sewing needle, but I've got it sharpened into a four-faceted, kind of like pyramid shape, so I can go hard, remove a lot of matrix, but do it in a more pinpoint, jackhammery type fashion. Then I have two rounded sewing needles, one smaller, one larger, for finer work. And at the moment I'm using things such as a 18 gauge hypodermic for cutting away some big, 22 gauge, 27 gauge, difference between 22 and 27. And then the very smallest, this one only works on very soft and very fine detail, 32 gauge. Basically, stabbing at the rock, cutting at the rock, slicing rock until I make fossil appear. I don't know if I explained all that or any of that in the last video. I was working on the mystery thing. I might go back to that later too. In a different video, I'll put it that way. I bounce around from fossil to fossil because, well, I find if you focus too much on one, you get bored, get distracted, become complacent, cause injury to the fossil. I'm trying to do this in a way so that I don't cause injury, or as little damage as possible. I'll put it that way. I'm going to damage something, I just know I am, because this one's the most delicate fossil I've ever worked on, aside from the 10mm trilobite that I prepped out from below. That one was done with all needle, very tiny. Actually the first most delicate fossil I'd ever worked with, which led me to wanting to do this one. My plan is to expose more to the side over here, a little bit more over here, and all the way down to the skeleton in the middle. I have a few of these frond holes all the way through. I'm getting close to the point where I'm going to have to start stabilizing, because that stuff right there is pretty thin. You can see compared to the needle. I'll try to get it in focus. It's hard. My phone is mounted to my microscope, so my microscope moves up and down. It'll move up and down like this. See that? That's my microscope moving up and down. Right there where I need it right now to see through the microscope. Nope, nope. Right there is where I need to see through the microscope. Either way, the plan is to expose as much of the fronds as possible and have this on display with this rock, because it has a trilobite in it. Down here is a little bit of another bryozoan in the middle of a crinoid ring. Plus, amongst other things, there's different bryozoans and stuff. And along the way, I'll expose a little bit of everything in it. There's a brachiopod here. It'll make a really nice display piece if everything's exposed and open pretty, I guess you could call it. It's like artwork, once living artwork. And I'm like, I can't Used to as a kid, I drew some, but I can't draw or paint or anything like that or sculpt. This is my artwork, exposing once living things from rock. It's my detail work, my calming effect. And yeah, you see me move around all over. It's because I don't really go at it with let's work at this one spot. Because I think if you overwork one spot, you're going to make more mistakes. For me, it's better to move around. Get a little bit here, get a little bit there. Maybe that's what takes longer. But it's what helps me expose it evenly across the board. You don't want to have like that much exposed and the rest of it all under rock, because it'll make you lose, or at least in my opinion, it'll make you lose what could possibly be under the rock. So for me, I'd rather do it a little bit here, a little bit there. It's easier to track the fossil, envision it, because you have to envision it. You have to know what you're seeing. You have to know what's there. And yeah, you're going to make some mistakes, but not. They were once moving things. I mean, yeah, this stayed in one spot, but it flowed. It undulated. It was soft enough to flex. It's going to have flexed. And fossils, regardless of how hard they are, moved it's a little bit. You just gotta look for the spots. Once you start getting close, you start removing minuscule amounts at a time so that you can track the fossil as it's moving within the rock. It's art. Once living art. Like Medusa with statues. This is my art. There's nothing more exciting than viewing something that hasn't been able to be viewed in hundreds of millions of years. You are the first to see it. In hundreds of millions of years. And when I say the first, I don't mean like person. You're the first living creature to see this stuff. Nothing has had a chance to view this in hundreds of millions of years. That is like just the coolest thing ever. Hundreds of millions of years. It's hard to even try to conceive that. I mean, yeah, I can look at the numbers and go, yep, this it was this long ago. But imagining that length of time, honestly, it's really just inconceivable. We think of time in a vastly different way. This is just brand new. Each time, even though it's something, this species has been seeing millions of times, whatever. It's brand new. Each one is its own. Because none of them nothing preserved in the exact same way. So no matter what, it's always something brand new. Always. No two fossils are exactly alike. There's going to be some slight difference. And when you expose it, when you bring it into the visual world, you are letting the world see something, or you're seeing something that's never been seen, because each one is different. Just like an art piece, even if the same artist recreated the same work 100 times, each one of those works is going to be slightly different. The colors may be slightly off, the brush strokes different, the pen strokes, the pencils, whatever medium they're using, slightly different. There's millions of Archimedes screw fossils out there. This one is so unique all on its own. It will never be another one like it. This rock, there's not another one like it anywhere ever, but right here in my hands. That is what makes this exciting. Yeah, it takes forever to do. It's a slow process, but it's the excitement of seeing something no one else has ever seen. No other person on earth has seen a stone like this, a fossil like this. That's art.